What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Leopazzo Productions. Thank you very much for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be having a closer look and comparing these two ZG-Cine V-Mount batteries. This is the ZG-Cine V99 V-Mount battery, and this is the ZG-Cine S150 V-Mount battery. I have been using the ZG-Cine V99 V-Mount battery for approximately about a year now, and I have been definitely impressed with it. Overall, I've been mainly using the V99 is to power my camera and to also power my external monitor on my camera. In some cases, I also use the V-Mount battery to charge my drone when I'm on the go. I also use it to fast charge my phone, and in some cases, I also use the V99 battery to power my external lights, for an example, if I don't have somewhere to plug it in and I'm filming outdoors. And as far as the S150 V-Mount battery, this is brand new to me. I just purchased this and I'm going to go ahead and unbox it today for you guys. I'm going to show you guys a bunch of different specs and inputs and outputs that we have onto the V-Mount battery, and I also wanted to basically just go ahead and compare it to the V99. So from my understanding and experience, the V99 is going to be a fantastic option if you plan to travel with this V-Mount battery, for an example, onto an airplane. So from my experience, I was able to take two of these V-Mount batteries, the V99s, onto my carry-on onto the plane, but I would just double check just in case with your airline to see the requirements on being able to take a V-Mount battery such as this capacity, the V99, onto your airplane as a carry-on. But in this case over here, the S150 might be a different story over here, because it believe, from my understanding from the airline that I traveled with, it is over the requirements of 99 watt hours, and therefore it might not be that easy to be able to take onto a plane. But just in case, just double check with your airline so you know which one of these V-Mount batteries will work for you and you can be able to safely travel with. So again, just briefly having a look over here at the V99, if you guys are not familiar already, again, there are a bunch of different outputs and inputs over here. First off, why don't we have a quick peek over here at the screen over here, because we do have a display screen which is going to display the percentage of the battery that we have remaining. And in this case over here, we are looking at 81% over here. So it's really nice to be able to see that. And the display screen does not stay on at all times over here, but if you do want it to turn on, you just need to press this little button over here one time and the display screen comes on. So overall, this has been working fantastic for me. I have been getting several hours between powering my camera and my monitor at the same time with this one V-Mount battery. So starting off over here on the output over here, we do have a D-tap output, which also acts as a D-tap input. So therefore, I use this D-tap output option here, for an example, to power my external monitor, and therefore I am using a D-tap to DC cable to take the power from the V-Mount battery and send it over to my external monitor. But I also use this D-tap as a charging option over here, because this acts, as I mentioned, as a D-tap input and a D-tap output. So I'm going to be using this again to power my devices and to also be able to charge this V-Mount battery. So having a closer look here at the top of the V-Mount battery, you'll notice over here onto the right hand side, we do have a USB-A over here, which is going to act as an output so we can charge our devices or either power on our devices. Just next to that, we do have a USB-C output, which is also a PD output, power delivery output, which is a fantastic option. With my GH6, I'm actually using this USB-C output to a dummy battery to power my Panasonic GH6 camera. So having a closer look over here to the left hand side of the V-Mount battery, we do have another USB-C input over here, which is going to actually act as a USB-C output and a USB-C input, and therefore this is actually going to be my second option that I use to charge this V-Mount battery, the V99, because again, it's a multifunctional as an input and an output power delivery. So that is a fantastic option right over here. So it's nice to see that we do have all of these options to be able to either charge this V99 or to also power or charge our devices. And again, we have the button over here for our display screen. So having a closer look over here at the back of the V99, you will notice that we do have obviously this metal V-mount locking plate over here, which is going to allow us to simply go ahead and mount this V-mount battery to a V-mount battery plate. And once we've mounted to the V-mount battery plate, the power from the V-mount battery is actually going to be connected to that plate over here via these smaller little electrical connections, which is going to be a BP out or a BP input. So for an example, the BP out, so from the battery has all the power. It's going to get connected to the V-mount plate and locked to it via here, and these electrical connections over here are going to be contacting the V-mount battery plate, and now the V-mount battery plate actually now has power. So that is going to be fantastic to use these batteries with a V-mount battery plate, because now we're going to have additional outputs, for an example, on that V-mount battery plate. So not only are we going to have the ones over here on the V99 itself, but now once we've docked it into a V-mount battery plate, we're going to have a bunch of different outputs on a V-mount battery plate. And actually ZG-Cine does also sell a V-mount battery plate, which I do have, which is currently installed right now onto my camera. So as far as the BP output, we do also have a BP input over here via these connections, because it's going to allow us, for an example, to dock this, or basically mount this V-mount battery into like a battery charger, a V-mount battery charger, which is actually going to allow us to charge this V99 V-mount battery via that docking plate of the V-mount battery charger. And now we do also have that option to charge this V-mount battery via these electrical connections over here at the back of the V99. So I think for the most part, you guys have a general idea on what the V99 is capable of, all the inputs and outputs, the display screen, how to use it, how to mount it, all the different options and accessories that we can use to charge and to power. Some additional specs about this V-mount battery, for an example, the weight, just some basic specs over here. The weight is 550 grams. The maximum charging time is approximately 3.5 hours. And also we do have, I guess let's just talk about the dimensions over here. So it's 110 millimeters by 75 millimeters by 56 millimeters, 99 watt hours, 14.8 volts at 6,800 milliamp hours. So those are some specs over there of the V99 before we go ahead and jump into the S150. So why don't we go ahead and unbox this S150 over here and have a closer look at all the options that we have available to us. Okay, so right off the bat, we do have this service card right over here. Service card, ZG-Cine. You can see all the Facebook official website and Instagram, etc. It's actually a nice card over here. It feels nice and solid and hard. Right over here, we do actually have the owner's manual, which looks like it's written in English and also Chinese over here. So we can go ahead and skim through this, which I suggest because it's going to tell you on how to care for the product. Next over here, let's take a peek what comes inside of this box, which is going to be a charging cable or a USB-C cable. Let's have a quick peek. This one seems to be, my guess is going to be USB-C to USB-C. So that is exactly what it is over here. USB-C to USB-C cable, which is going to allow us to either power or charge our devices or also be able to charge it. We'll see shortly once we go ahead and have a closer look at this V-mount battery. So it comes in this nice protective little plastic over here. Okay, so wow, this looks pretty nice. It looks like it's a little bit different design over here. Comparing it between each other side by side, the S150 looks like it's taller. The S150 does also look a little bit thicker than the V99. It's taller and it also looks like it's wider as well. So we'll take a look at some of those specs in a little bit to kind of see the exact dimensions, etc. But let's just take a peek at the V-mount battery first. So starting off over here, we do have that typical button over here, but in this case, you'll notice that we do not have a display screen. So what's going to happen when we press this button, it's going to show these LED bars over here at the front, which is showing us basically our battery percentage. So each one of these bars is representing 20%. So for an example, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So right now this V-mount battery is fully charged at 100%, as each one of these LED bars over here is representing 20%. So next over here, just above that button, we do have a 14.8 volt D-tap over here. And you can see by this little icon over here, this is actually a D-tap input and output. That's what I'm getting out of here just right off the bat without even skimming through the manual. But it's looking like this D-tap is going to act as a way to power our devices, so as an output, and also a way to charge this V-mount battery over here, which is fantastic. I'll be definitely taking advantage of that. So next over here, let's have a closer look at the top of the S150. S150. Let me just go ahead and spin it around so we can see this text over here, and we're going to go ahead and compare it between side by side between the V99 and the S150. So starting off over here onto the left hand side of the S150, you'll notice that we do have two DC outputs over here. The one on the left is an 8.4 volts output, and the next one over here is a 12 volts output. So both of these are going to be two different options to be able to power our devices depending how many voltage that we want to send out to our device. Next over here we do have a USB-C connection, and this is labeled as a PD output, so therefore this is going to be an option for us to USB-C to power or to charge our devices right over here. Next over here onto the far right hand side, again we do have another USB-C connection, and this one is labeled as PD input and a PD output. So this one is also going to allow us to power and charge our devices, but also it's going to act as an input, so we can actually charge this S150 via this PD input over here as well. So far I'm noticing that we have two different ways to charge this V-mount battery, right over here via DTAP and right over here via USB-C. I'm actually just noticing that between these two V-mount batteries, this one is nicely labeled over here exactly what it is doing, and this one is labeled as well, but it's more so labeled over here onto these little rubber little stopper little pads over here. So it does have labeling, but I do kind of like the fact that it does have the written over here in white text, which is nice and easy to read. I do also like the V99, the fact that we have these little kind of protective little rubber covers over here, so kind of no debris or dust or anything kind of gets inside and keeps those little ports protected as well. Okay, so let's have a look on what's next over here. I believe we need to look at this side over here. So this side, just comparing them side by side over here, we do have another 14.8 volts DTAP over here, and again by this icon that I'm noticing, this is looking like it's going to be a way to either charge the V-mount battery or to be able to power our devices. So this is an input and an output of the DTAP. So it's really nice to see that we have one on this side, input and output DTAP, and another one on this side, input and output on DTAP. And we do have the PD input and output. So that is fantastic. We have multiple different options to be able to power our devices and to also charge this V-mount battery. So I think we got a good understanding on all the inputs and outputs. Again, looking here at the back, again, we do have this metal V-mount battery little locking plate, which is very typical to what we have on the V99. And we do also have this BP out and BP input, so this is going to act as the same way. It's going to be a way for us to power the V-mount battery plate itself once we've mounted it to the plate, and it's also going to be a way with these electrical connections for us to go ahead and charge this V-mount battery. So overall, I think we kind of pretty much looked at everything. I do like the feel of it. It doesn't actually feel too heavy. It looks really nice. I like the design. Both of them are nice. I think a lot of people are going to be a fan of the display screen, but we do have these LED bars over here, which is basically giving us the same type of information over here. So that is nice. I'll actually like to see what color these LED lights go to, or what kind of happens to these when we're actually charging it, just to kind of see if they change color or anything like that. So again, this is my first time unboxing this and using this S150, so I'm excited to get this mounted on my rig and start using it and powering my equipment, etc. So again, taking a look at some of these specs over here, let's have a look at the dimension. So we got 130 millimeters by 90 millimeters by 62 millimeters, and we do have a weight of 786 grams compared to the V99, which the weight was 550 grams. Looking at the maximum charging time on the S150, we have 2.5 hours. So it's going to take only 2.5 hours to charge this battery, which is actually bigger than the V99. So I kind of find that interesting over here. The maximum charging time 2.5 hours, and over here on the V99 the maximum charging time is 3.5 hours. Again, just taking a look at maybe more of the specs over here as far as the inputs and outputs. Just going to go ahead and briefly read these out to you. So again, the PD input, we have 5 volts at 3 amps, we got 9 volts at 3 amps, 12 volts 3 amps, 15 volts 3 amps, or 20 volts at 5 amps. The output, which is the USB USB-C. We got 5 volts 2.4 amps, 9 volts 3 amps, 12 volts 3 amps, 15 volts 3 amps, 20 volts 3.25 amps. The DC output, we got 8.4 volts at 3 amps, and we also have the other DC output, which is 12 volts at 3 amps. The dimensions we already covered. The temperature that we can use this V-mount battery as negative 20 degrees Celsius all the way up to plus 55 degrees Celsius. Applicable equipment, I gave you examples already: mobile phones, video cameras, high-powered LED lights, monitors, electrical slide rails, and other digital equipment. Next over here we have the capacity of the S150, which is 14.8 volts at 9,000 milliamp hours, and again it is 133.2 watt hours. The DTAP BP input is 16.8 volts at 3 amps maximum. The DTAP BP output, again 14.8 volts at 13 amps maximum. Next over here we have the weight, which is 786 grams. Maximum charging time, as we talked about, 2.5 hours. So there you go, guys. This is the S150 comparison to the V99. Hopefully you guys have learned something along the way. Again, you can see the one cable that we have included with the S150, and on the other hand, the V99, we do have these two cables over here. This one is a USB-A connection to a USB-C connection, and over here also included with the V99, we have a USB-C to USB-C. And these cables are going to support the fast charging to support the features of this V-mount battery. So guys, some additional features about both of these V-mount batteries that I believe is worthwhile mentioning. For an example, over here on the side of the box of the V99, you'll notice that it says, so starting over here onto the left hand side, you'll see that it says overcharge protection, overheat protection, short circuit protection, over discharge protection, overpower protection, over voltage protection, over circuit protection, and removal of overload condition and automatic recovery. So as you can see, those are great features because it kind of just makes it bulletproof, just in case you kind of encounter any of those scenarios on overcharging it or overheating it. It has all of those protections built in right into this V99. And similar to the S160, you'll notice over here under the front of the box that says overheat protection, overcurrent protection, overcharge protection, USB-C PD fast charging 100 watt, removal of overload condition and automatic recovery, and also multiple protection included as well here on the S150. So for those of you that are wondering how I charge my V99 battery and how I plan to charge my S150 V-mount battery, these are two examples right over here. So starting off with my example over here onto the left hand side, you will notice that I have this AC/DC adapter, which one end is going to be getting plugged into the wall, and the other end over here is the DTAP connection, which I'm going to be connecting right over here for an example at the side of the S150. Again, the DTAP port onto the left hand side is an input and an output, and the DTAP port on the right hand side is also an input and an output. So whatever side works best for you, I'm just going to go ahead and connect it like so, and now I can go ahead and plug this end into the wall, and this is going to be an option for charging this S150. The other option over here that I have onto my right hand side, this is a fast charging hub over here that's going to get plugged into the wall, and on the back of it, it just has a USB-C connection. Again, I'm using the cable that is provided with the V99. I can use the cable that comes with the S150 as well, but since I already have this one unraveled and pretty much ready to use, I'm going to be connecting the USB-C port on the back of this fast charging hub, and on the other end of this cable again is another USB-C as well that supports fast charging. I'm going to be connecting it over here on the S150 to the PD input output, the USB-C port over here, and therefore now I can go ahead and plug this one end into the wall, and now it's going to go ahead and start charging the S150 V-mount battery. So those are the two options that I'm going to be using. Well guys, that looks like a wrap for today's video. If you do have any comments or questions, concerns, let me know down in the comment section down below. Hopefully you guys have learned something along the way. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead, like it, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Till next time, peace.